We've talked before about how the Clone Wars brought out the worst in people all across the galaxy. It was a meaningless, vicious war that destroyed the lives of untold civilians and saw war crimes committed from both sides. It wasn't just the militaries that were dragged into the chaos of war, however. The Jedi, stalwart defenders of justice, honor, and the Republic, were no exception to this, and many of them found themselves tangled up in situations their morals would have never allowed for prior to the war. Some, like Plo Koon, were able to rise up above the chaos and stay true to the values of the Jedi. Others, like the ones we'll be talking about today, went a little nutso and let loose their inner killers. But not all murder hobos are born equal. In today's video, we'll be trying to figure out which Clone Wars era Jedi was the most bloodthirsty of the bunch.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Typically, when people call someone bloodthirsty, they mean they have a strong desire to unalive or hurt someone else, and they act on it. If you're thinking, hey, that doesn't really sound like a Jedi, you'd of course be correct. Even in the middle of the Clone Wars, most Jedi were able to remain Jedi enough to avoid turning into Sithy madmen. In other videos, especially our Sith History series, we've mentioned plenty of Jedi who weren't able to do the same, so props to the Clone Wars era Jedi for not setting the bar that low. Another thing we've talked about plenty is how the Jedi Order made the fatal mistake of embroiling itself in the Clone Wars. What kept many Jedi actively in the fight was their inability to perceive what justice truly was. The Council had long become blinded to the flaws of the Order and the Republic, and in many ways, they believed themselves infallible. This is where the first entry on our list comes in, Ki-Adi-Mundi. Longtime fans of our channel will know we have a particular dislike for him and aren't all that shy to call him a straight-up sociopath. Mundi felt no emotion, not even in the face of murder and familial loss. Of course, Jedi were encouraged not to form close emotional attachments, but as Anakin observed, that didn't mean Jedi didn't have emotions. They still loved and cared for other people, and that sentiment of connection was what grounded them in the world around them and helped them understand other people. Mundi had none of that. We won't go so far as to say he enjoyed death and murder, but a man who can see his dead wives and daughters and not give a hoot deserves a special place in hell, and the lowest ranking in this list. Our next entry is a little less famous, but he's a great example of the worst a Jedi could be. Jorus C'baoth was a Jedi Master that, by the time of the Clone Wars, was in his 50s. In theory, Jorus was a consular focused on diplomacy. To give you an idea of what sort of guy he was, we offer two fun facts. One, he was close friends with Palpatine, and two, he gave himself the title of Jedi Master after killing a group of Dark Jedi. In 27 BBY, he decided that the way to go was to create a 50,000 person massive starship that would travel into the unknown regions and colonize worlds for the Republic. Palpatine secretly had the Trade Federation attack the ship and the Chiss joined the fight. While the spaceship was destroyed, killing Jorus and about 50,000 other people, Jorus didn't go quietly. He force-choked Chiss Commander and tried to take out as many of their enemies as he could. So, what made him so evil? Well, like Windu, Jorus always flirted with the dark side. Unlike Windu, however, he was too arrogant to admit it. Jorus thought himself to be far superior to everyone else, so much so that he refused time and again to knight his own Padawan despite his student having served faithfully for many years. He also believed that non-force sensitive beings were inferior, which is why we believe he set out to colonize the unknown regions. He saw the suffering the Republic brought upon the fringe worlds, and not only didn't see a problem with it, but agreed wholeheartedly and went out of his way to conceptualize and execute a plan to spread the Republic's tyranny even further. Because the lowly non-force users deserved it. Jorus's problems were similar to Mundi's. He was also a condescending, arrogant old man, but whereas Mundi was mostly content to sit back and indifferently judge people from a distance, Jorus went out of his way to spread the Republic's tyranny across the galaxy because the Jedi and the Republic could never possibly do a single bad thing, and the lesser had to listen to whatever he said. As terrible as Jorus was, however, he wasn't the worst psycho the Jedi had to offer during the time around the Clone Wars. Technically, he died just before the Separatist crisis started, but we think he's an excellent example of how terrible the Jedi could be back then. But leaving the two condescending old people behind, we come to someone many probably thought would be at the top of the list. We're pretty sure at least some of you sat back mumbling Anakin Skywalker at your screens the moment you saw the topic, expecting another video where you get a few potential candidates, but the answer was always the obvious choice from the start. This isn't one of those videos. Anakin Skywalker may very well have had the highest kill count in the Clone Wars, but he wasn't really what you'd call bloodthirsty. As we mentioned at the beginning, a thirst for blood implies a strong, overwhelming desire to maim or kill someone else. For the most part, that didn't really describe Anakin. Yeah, he had high kill count, but most of those deaths weren't driven by a desire to kill, but out of necessity. Every dreadnought he exploded killed thousands, sure, but he wasn't doing it to kill thousands. Blowing up the ship was a necessity to win the battle. While there are certainly exceptions to this, like the time he killed the Sandmen, Sandwoman, and Sandchildren too, and his final rampage through the Jedi Temple, overall, Anakin wasn't a homicidal maniac. Others have theorized that Anakin suffered from a personality disorder, which isn't really something we'll get into, but we generally agree that he wasn't some horrific monster out to dye the galaxy red. Another important fact to consider is that Anakin grew up a slave, enduring untold hardships on Tatooine. The first rampage he committed, he did so in a fit of sudden agony when he discovered his mother was killed. The second followed the loss of his wife and child after Palpatine had pushed him to the dark side. In both cases, Anakin probably felt as if he had lost everything and had had no other choice. No one at the Jedi Temple would understand his pain. In fact, when Obi-Wan had been presumed dead during the Clone Wars, Ki-Adi-Mundi's response to Anakin was that he needed to get over it. Anakin had no other support to lean on in these instances, and when someone hits rock bottom, there's no real telling what they'll be willing to do. We're not going to go full Anakin apologist on you all. He did some pretty horrific things during the Clone Wars, so much so that we had to give him a spot on this list, just not the rank of Master. No, the true victor on this list can only be one person. In our entirely objective-based opinion, the most bloodthirsty Jedi during the Clone Wars was Jedi Master Pong Krell. We don't even need to introduce him. The fandom's hate boner for him is well established and well deserved. Some might argue that, by the time of the incident on Umbara, he didn't really count as a Jedi anymore, but we disagree. He was a member of the Order running missions on its behalf, even if he was a disingenuous piece of garbage that deserved what he got. At this point, he may still have been with the Jedi just to sabotage them and curry favor with Count Dooku, but even before his fall to the dark side, he had the highest casualty rate of any Jedi general, mostly because of his attitude toward his clone troopers. Anyway, Pong Krell is well known for his blatant disregard for clones. It wasn't that he was willing to sacrifice as many as was necessary, but he intentionally sent them into battles in such a way that would get as many of them killed as he could. On that mission on Umbara, Pong Krell was out on a clone killing spree. Before you disagree that he wasn't bloodthirsty either and was just doing what he thought was necessary to survive the coming darkness, we call BS. In everything Pong Krell did, he made it very clear he hated clones. From abusing them, to depersonalizing them, to humiliating and mistreating them, he didn't see them as people. Plus, unlike Anakin, who mostly killed what was directly in his way, you can't tell us he wasn't getting a kick out of pitting the clone units against each other and making them kill each other. Then you have the scene in the Umbaran forest where the clones tried to capture him and he straight up murdered them, all while taunting them like a lunatic. Pong Krell didn't kill out of necessity. He killed those clones because he enjoyed it. He was a sadistic, bloodthirsty douche canoe who deserves a spot in hell, and on this list too. One could argue his sadism was mostly turned against the clones, who were really the only people he could easily abuse to make himself feel better about his powerlessness. Someone else could also argue he was a victim of the dark side, which his fear had led him to, but we don't agree. Pong Krell had a choice. He just chose the path of chaotic evil. But what do you think? Was there a Jedi more bloodthirsty than Pong Krell? we're pretty sure he was the worst of the worst. But if you know any Jedi that was even more of a murder hobo, feel free to school us in the comments section below. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.